Thank you, Chairman Latta, and members of the distinguished committee. I have an extensive deck to go through, and so I ask for your patience because I'm going to zip through it fairly quickly. I'm here today on behalf of the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers. We're 12 manufacturers from the U.S., from Europe, and from Japan, who represent about 80% of the cars on the road in the U.S. So let me jump in. I've got 8 points to make. The first point, next slide, is that sales have peaked. We went through 7 years of growth. We're a cyclical industry. We've now peaked. If you look at the bottom right, you will see that year over year, we're now down about a point from the first 9 months of 16. You also see a very significant shift in the fleet mix. Cars over the 5 years are down 19%. Trucks over the 5 years are up 38%. Point two, there's been very broad and strong support for harmonization from environmental voices. Chris Grundler is a senior career guy at EPA who opens up his presentations around the country with a picture of the planet and talks about the importance of saving the planet. So his bona fides in this area are strong. He says, I'm all in on harmonization. It should not be acceptable for an automaker to pay penalties under CAFE. The ICCT testified here before, said based on the well-designed EPA flexibilities, a harmonized one national program would best be addressed with NHTSA's program, matching EPA's. The Obama DOT talked about building a single fleet of U.S. vehicles, helping to reduce costs and regulatory complexity. Carol Browner, a clear and uniform national policy is not only good news for consumers, but also good news for the auto industry, which will no longer be subject to a costly patchwork. We still are. And of course, the President of the United States, President Obama, when he was in office, clear certainty that will allow these companies to plan for a future which are building cars in the 21st century. So there's strong support from really both sides of the aisle. Point three, the determination, as has been suggested in some of the opening statements, was rushed. On November 29th, that was a screenshot of the EPA website, which talked about the determination coming out in April of 2018, simultaneously with NHTSA. November 30th, the screenshot disappeared. It was like those old Soviet photos where the picture of the guy leaves and bingo, they're gone. So the process changed. The determination was rushed. The industry is completely united on the idea of rebooting the MTR. 18 CEOs from all the major companies that operate in the U.S., some of whom are based here, some of whom choose to invest here, all signed a letter asking that we do not prejudge the outcome, but that we reboot the MTR to the original schedule that was promised when the deal was done in 2011. Next slide. Point four, reality is now contradicting theory. When the final determination came out in January, the line was, the automakers are over-complying, everything is fine. A few weeks later, NHTSA came out with new evidence on compliance and showed that for 16 and 17, we're now under-complying. So the reality on the ground is under-compliance in 16 and 17. Point five, the math here is really, really important. If you go from 10 to 20 MPG over 1,000 miles, you save 50 gallons. If you go from 40 to 50 over 1,000 miles, you save 5 gallons. There's a 10-to-1 multiplier focusing on the front end of the curve rather than the back end of the curve. That suggests that the most important thing you guys can do is to make sure that fleet turnover happens as rapidly as possible. This next slide shows that the bulk of the savings through 2025 has already been realized. NHTSA has proposed through 2025, in terms of gallons saved, 179 billion gallons. If you take 2021 and you plus it up 1, 2, or 3%, you get somewhere between 97 and 99% of the savings. So we can talk about this big gap in terms of the politics of the issue, but in terms of the substance, through 2025, we're 97% and 99% there. That's pretty impressive. I am really running out of time. Gas prices were profoundly wrong, 0.6. That's changed the fleet mix in a dramatic way. What you see here in this next slide is the 4 lines. The 54 line is the original deal. The 51.4 line is the same deal recalculated with the change in the fleet mix. And the third line is if you recalculate based on the subsequent fleet mix changes where the deal now is. That's not a stringency adjustment. That is where the number now is roughly 50. The final point here is that consumers have a very important role in this. This is a program that gets measured by what consumers buy, not by what we produce. They are saying they like fuel economy, but they're not willing to pay for it. I'll go through, if I can, just 2 slides. 1 in 3 say they would pay nothing for additional fuel economy. 1 in 10 would be willing to pay more than $2,500. And then finally, because they say they like fuel economy, it's important to understand contextually where it fits. Affordability and reliability are top priorities. Fuel economy and safety follow. So when a consumer goes into the showroom, they're looking for lots and lots of factors and lots of features. Fuel economy is one of those, but it's not the sole determinant of their choice.